Okay, so we are starting chapter 4, that is Surgeon Status Report. And in this, basically, we got to know about the scope and importance of such, that it is really important for banks, for directors, for shareholders, for governments, and for also customers and suppliers. So basically, if we say that it is very important for stakeholders. Stakeholder, as we know, that whoever is connected with the company. So transaction requiring charge registration. Definitely for the charge registration we require the Surgeon Status Report. When company is acquiring any property or assets, whether tangible or not, okay, so subject to any charge. Yes, company is basically acquiring any property or asset, then we require charge. So a charge is created within and outside India. Means within India it could be created, and even outside India it could be created. Any of the undertaking, there is a modifications in terms of the terms or conditions or extent of operation of any charge already registered. Now there are charges on properties which are created or acquired by any foreign company. So they have basically defined charge here. Now search for of charge registered under Companies Act. So in the Companies Act, what we have provisions? So in Company Act we have provisions that the registrar may, on an application by the company, allow registration to be made. Means he has to apply to the ROC, and then a registration could be done for the charge. We have read the form of CHG 9, CHG 8, so that is related to charge. Now provided that registrar may, on an application by the company, allow such registration to be made, there are two cases. That in case of a charge created before the commencement of Companies Act 2000 ordinance, means 2018 से पहले कुछ था, and within a period of 300 days creation of this charge. Basically this is a technical topic here कि उससे पहले क्या था, उससे बाद में क्या था. It would hardly asked in the exam, so I am skipping this topic because it is not so relevant for the point of view of examination. Okay, so we have just give me a moment. So we have here now that is search under Companies Act, examination of documents with MCA and inspection of various documents with the company, cross-verify with the MCA, compilation and preparation of search report, also format. And if we go for the search under IPR, then we need to prepare checklist, segregate the IP address, IP assets relevant for the transaction from irrelevant ones, analyze all documents carefully, verifying facts and confirm that information is correct, analyzing protected and protectable IP rights, drafting of status and search report. Now property title search includes ownership, deed copy, legal description, chain documents, possession, right of way, easementary rights, lease, mortgage, tax payment, bankruptcy search, and also search under RBI, SEBI and stock exchange. In case of a public issue, draft offer of document with the SEBI, red herring prospectus, documents filed with the SEBI, and final offer document that is filed with the SEBI. These are the documents which we need for a search purpose. And in case of a debt offer, a document, a draft filed by the stock exchange and final filed with the ROC. In case of a buybacks, we need to go for the tender offers and open market through stock exchange. So now we have questions here in this chapter. We'll go through these questions in a later topics. Now we have another topic, that is know your customer. I think it's visible now. Yes, it is visible. So what all are the objectives? Objectives of KYC is basically to stop the corporate vehicle to be used intentionally or unintentionally by criminal elements for illicit purposes such as money laundering, fraud, bribery, and corruption, bribery basically. shielding assets and from creditors, illicit tax practices, market fraud, terrorist funding, avoid future risk, and KYC related procedures also enable institutions to better understand their customers and their financial dealings. This basically helps in managing associated risk prudently, that how we can manage that risk prudently. So key requirements in various transactions. What all are the key requirements we need to go through with this? That incorporation of that company. That company has been incorporated. Now we have to go for the 10 obtaining opening of bank account, demat account, wallet. So key requirement is basically incorporation of a company. We may also go for the KYC. Obtaining div, we require KYC. Opening of a bank account, we require KYC. For demat account also. For wallet also. For deposit and withdrawal of cash. For purchase of gold, silver and property. Because we know that more than 2 lakh of our gold we need to give our KYC. Employment and provident fund. So for all these purposes we may need KYC. Opening of a subsequent account where document as per current KYC. So what are the type of KYC? We have two types of KYC basically. First is eKYC, then we have CKYC. eKYC basically we could say it's electronic KYC. The service of eKYC can only be used by those who have Aadhaar number. Information provided under eKYC process will be considered as a wallet document. Now CKYC stands for the Central KYC, which basically provides the uniform norms and inter-usability. It is basically a central KYC. The central KYC registered across all financial sector has been set up as a depository for KYC records. The initiative has been started for the purpose of centralizing and streamlining KYC process, and also to avoid the duplication of KYC and less scope of forgery. So this central KYC, which basically provide universal norms and interusability, this central KYC registry across all financial sector has been set up as a depository for KYC records. So this has been set up as a depository for KYC records, and where it is interusability and uniform norms it has, and the initiative has been started for the purpose of centralizing. They were basically wants to centralizing and streamlining KYC process, and also to avoid the duplication of KYC and less scope of forgery. Now it's visible. So now we have some points that was to be noted in respect of DIR3 KYC. Okay, so DIR3 KYC is basically required for filed by every director who has been allotted DIN on or before 31st March of a financial year and whose DIN status is approved. Now due date for filing DIR3 KYC is on before 30th April. Prerequisite mandatory information. DIR3 basically requires personal unique mobile number, personal email ID, and also email ID mobile number for receiving OTP. Now certification of DIR3 KYC, first by affixing registered digital signature of the respective person, then certification by practicing CA, CMA, NE. Now filing of DIR3 KYC would be mandatory for disqualified director as well. If that has not to be done, then director could be termed as disqualified. Now if director fails to file DIR3 with the MCA, the system will mark all approved DINs allotted on or before 31st March 2018 against the DIR3 KYC form has not been filled as deactivated with reason as non-filing of DIR3 KYC. Now MCA has notified nil fees and late fees of 5,000 applicable for the due date for e-filing of DIR3 KYC, and there is a 5,000 penalty under Rule 12A of the Companies Appointment and Qualification of Director Rules, and that is not to be required. Now MCA has also notified format related to DIR3 KYC and also new rules as per 12A Director KYC along with the procedures for restoration of deactivated DINs of directors applicable. Now what all are the guidelines of ICSI on Know Your Members? Do I need to check that how long this chapter is? Okay, but we'll finish it. Now, ICICI guidelines on know your customer. Every member is required to communicate to institute any change of professional address within a month of such change. So basically they want within a month of such change we need to communicate to the ICICI. Further, to have update members KYC, the ICICI has provided to know your member pro forma, which is to be submitted by all members of the institute by way of with effect from payment of annual membership. When they are going to pay their annual membership, then they ask about their know your member pro forma, where address has also been mentioned. So if they submit it, so they made it that their last address they want to continue with. Now this know your member facility is expected to prevent identity theft of member by fraudulent elements and help the institute to maintain updated information about the member. Okay, so now the member should submit 2 documents along with know your member pro forma duly filed and signed. One document which proves as identity of a person and also another document which serve as a proof of address. So we need to give our proof of identity and also proof of address. A member should submit any of the following 5 documents notified as official valid documents by the government as a proof of identity, that is passport, driving license, voter ID, PAN card, Aadhaar card. We know that address we can also mention that what is all required. So it is basically to make it question lengthier. Now know your customer, know your client for norms for company secretary in practice. The illustrative list of company secretary know your customer, know your client information as is under client information, corporate structure, permissible business information as per memorandum of association, board structure, organization structure, transaction with business entity in which directors are interested, details of loan and guarantees in which directors are interested, creation, modification and satisfaction of charge, forex exposure and overseas borrowing, payment status of statutory dues and arrears, and name of the CEO, CFO, company secretary's engagement information, details of any proceeding against the company or any of its director. Now risk upon due KYC. What is a risk? There is a risk of reputational, operational, the risk that may arise, and there is also financial risk. So reputational, operational, financial, and that risk they may arise in future. So what are all the grounds of action? Non-adherence of KYC requirements like customer identification and risk categorization. So non-adherence of KYC requirement. Also non-adherence to Reserve Bank instruction on monitoring of transactions in customers' account and prompting filing of STR. Okay, non-adherence to director guidelines issued under FEMA provisions. Now, what are the major frauds which took place with the help of incomplete KYC? What can be the fraud can be done? To evade tax, an individual route saving transaction through multiple bank account that can be happened, and an individual illegally obtain personal information document of another person and takes a loan in the name of that person. He or she provides false information about his or her financial status such as salary, IT returns and other assets, takes as a loan for an amount that exceeds his or her eligible limits with the motive of non-repayment. A person takes a loan using a fictitious name and there is a lack of strong framework pertaining to spot verifications of address, due diligence of directors, promoters, pre-sanctions, survey, identification of faulty, incomplete applications and negative criminal records in the client history. Now we have fake document is used to grant excessive overdraft facility and withdraw money. Fraud related to advanced portfolio accounts for largest share of total amount involved in frauds in the banking sector. Also deficient appraisal system, poor post disbursement supervision and inadequate follow-up. Spending of funds can be happened wherein borrowed funds and banks are utilized for purposes unrelated to operations of the borrower. Now what could be the online fraud through incomplete KYC? What all are the online fraud that could be happen? Then in the last few years, majority fraud cases were reported as technological related frauds, covering frauds committed through at an internet banking channel, ATMs and other payment channels like credit, debit and prepaid cards. Now we have hacking, phishing. Hacking could be happened where fraudster obtain unauthorized access of the cards management system of the respective bank. Counterfeit cards are then issued for the purpose of money laundering. Phishing can be happened, that is FPHISHING, that is a technique that is used to obtain your card and personal details through fake emails. So fake emails, they can also do phishing and they could get your card and personal details. Now we have farming. Farming is basically, it is a similar technique where a fraudster install malicious code on a personal computer or server. Means a malicious code is basically a similar technique where a fraudster install a malicious code on a personal computer or server. The code then redirect click you to make on a website to another fraudulent website. When you click that on it, and you will go to the another website without your consent and your knowledge. There is a wishing, that is VISING. Farming, when we know that from this to this we have reached to another website. And there is a wishing, then fraudster also use the phone to solicit your personal information. Means fraudster you also use the phone to solicit your personal information. So smishing can be happened, debit card smearing can be happened, computer virus, counterfeit instruments. So these all are the things. Like in wishing, we know that the fraudster also use the phone to solicit your information. Now smishing, that is it use cell phone text messages to lure customer in. Often the text will contain an URL or phone number. The phone number often has automated voice response, and again it's just like phishing. The smishing message usually asks you to ask for your immediate action. Now debit card skimming, like a machine or a camera installed in the ATM which picks up card related information and PIN number. When the direct customer use their card, they would catch it. Now computer virus, when every click on the internet, a company's systems are open to risk of being infected and nefarious software that is set up to harvest information from the company server. Now counterfeit instrument, that is a fake check, demand drafts that look too good to be true, are being used in a growing number of fraudulent schemes, including foreign lottery scams, check overpayment scam, internet auction scam and secret shopper scams. So we have possible frauds with mobile wallets. So what all are the possible fraud that could be happen through mobile wallet? That is increased risk of money laundering. Means money laundering could be happen, and also fake merchant. Sole proprietorship form, what we know, we need pen copy, pen number of proprietor, color size photograph for the person, and also copy of identity address proof, and two existent proof of the confirming name, and FATCA, that is foreign account tax compliance declaration. In case of a HUF, we need KYC, a pen of HUF, latest photograph of Karta and authorized signatory, copy of identity, address proof of Karta and address proof of HUF if different from Karta, and we have to check out that a foreign account tax compliance declaration. And also in case of a private limited company, we need pen copy of the members and the company, and also a copy of memorandum of article of association and memorandum of association, and also latest photograph of all signatory, copy identity, address proof of all authorized signatory, copy of address proof of the company, and copy of certificate of incorporation. So in both cases we have FATCA, that is foreign account tax compliance declaration they have to submit. That's done. Thank you.